Welcome back to the Blues Society of Northwest Florida's weekly podcast. I am your host, Paul Stadden. As every week, I talk to the bands that are playing at the Maritime Park on Sunday, as well as the Blues Jams Monday nights. It's Lili, Marlene's in Seville Quarter at 8 o'clock. And this week, I'm really happy to be joined by Diedra, the Blues Diva of Diedra and the Rough Pro Band. Diedra, thank you so much for being able to join me today.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Well, Diedra, as I always try to do with every one of my guests, so let's start out chronologically and start at the beginning and tell me about how you got into the blues and why singing and not an instrument.
Oh, gosh. Well, I got into the blues because of my husband. My husband, Keith Russ, he is Bobby Rush's lead guitar player.
Nice.
And when we got together in 2007, officially, the first thing he did was took me out on the road with him. He's like, you need to know about the blues. So I went on the road with him, Bobby, and the band.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like one of the rest of the band members. And it blew me away. I remember the first time I saw Keith and them, they came to Brunswick, Georgia, and I lived in Florida, so Brunswick was only an hour drive for me.
Right,
and I laughed the whole time I saw Bobby Rush's show.
Oh, man. So he's got a good sense of humor about him?
Well, you know, if you've ever seen the Bobby Rush show with the girls dancing and all that kind of stuff, it just was, oh, my God, I had never seen anything like that. And then my husband came out off the stage and played the guitar for me, and that completely blew me away. I was a fan right away.
That is awesome. So what was the style? What were you doing before you were into the blues? Were you soul, or what was the style that you were into?
Absolutely. I was R&B, and that's how I met my husband. I was signed to a record company in Brunswick, Georgia in 1998 called Down Production, and Keith was actually their producer at the time. So he was assigned to my project, but we never physically met.
Interesting. Okay.
For 10 years, we knew each other, but we never met because our schedules always conflict. And when it was time for me to go into the studio, he would be leaving and I would be coming to New York.
Comedy of errors.
Huh?
Comedy of errors, it sounds.
Oh, yeah, comedy of error. But it was so funny because that was a good thing, because when we actually hooked up in 2007, he called me out of the blue, and his voice is so distinctive. He looks like Barry White, but he sounds like Prince. So when he called me, and I was like, that's Keith. So I called him back, and I was like, oh, my God. We hadn't talked in about 3 years.
Nice.
And we hooked up, we began dating, and got married, and we've been together ever since.
Well, that is too cool. So is the band just a four-piece? It's you, Keith, Kenneth Ortega on bass, and Ezra Williams, the drummer. I mean, have you ever thought about adding more pieces, like maybe brass or anything like that? Or do you like to keep it more simple?
I like to keep it small because it kind of works for us with the traveling.
Right.
I mean, we're everywhere all the time, and we kind of keep it to where we're in our personal van, and we don't have to maybe rent a larger vehicle or
fair
anything
enough.
like that. And it works for us, to keep it small.
Okay, fair enough. Well, tell me a little bit about the backup. You've been talking about Keith Ruff, your lead guitarist. He was Bobby Rush's guitarist for 19 years. But the other two guys are a little bit more quiet. I know Ezra specifically is the quiet drummer. But go ahead and brag on them for just a second. I know they're phenomenal musicians.
The cool thing about it is that my husband's whole family is incredibly talented. And Ezra is my husband's nephew.
Oh, okay.
He's Keith's sister's son. So we're able to keep it in the family.
Nice.
And Ezra has a beautiful voice. He's a singer as well as a drummer. He does his own music on his spare time, and he produces all of his music as well as my husband produced mine. And my husband taught Ezra everything about the music business growing up.
Nice.
So he knows how to produce just like my husband does. So he's
that's
an amazing
awesome.
musician. Kenneth, we just kind of hooked up recently, and when I started talking to Kenneth, he said, I always wanted to play with Keith. And it's funny because Keith's like, I didn't know him, but he watched us. He's been watching us for years and hearing great things about us, and he always wanted to play with us. So when the opportunity came, he jumped on it, and he's awesome.
Nice.
He's wonderful. Yes.
How do you guys share the songwriting responsibilities? Is it mostly you and Keith, or is it a shared thing between all four members of the band?
Well, Keith and I have our own studio in Talladega, where we live.
Mm-hmm.
So all of the music and stuff is done between Keith and I. I write, he produces the music. A lot of times he may come up with the music concept and say, okay, D, what you hear to this? And he'll play it, and then I'll begin writing.
Nice. Well, tell me, you guys have a couple CDs out right now, Live in the Blues, Transformation of Me. You've been featured on Blues Babes of Alabama. Do you have plans for another album coming out anytime soon?
Well, my first one was Overcoming Hurdles, which was the one that got me out there.
Nice.
Hip Swing and Blues came from that very first CD. That song got me all of my nominations, and it was the one that created the national line dance. If you go to YouTube, you put in Hip Swing and Blues, there's over 20-something YouTube of people doing Hip Swing and Blues line dance.
YouTube Hip Swing and Blues. I'm going to make sure that I get a link to that when I put up the podcast.
Swing and Blues. That's
nice,
right.
Nice.
So that was my very first one. But yes, we have a CD that we just finished, and we're kind of shopping it right now. It's called Diva Blues.
Nice. I like that.
And the song from the Alabama Blues Babes, we and I actually put that CD together. We did it because we travel a lot more as a blues woman in the state of Alabama, pretty much more than a lot of the women do. So what I wanted to do was do something to help some of the women here in Alabama. So I came up with the concept of putting that Alabama Blues Babes CD together to kind of give some of the other Alabama women some recognition.
Nice. See, that's something that I'm always concerned about. I don't see a lot of women in the blues, and I don't understand it. You know, because some of my favorite performer, Bonnie Raitt, for example. Oh, gosh. I'm just in awe whenever I get to see her play. And I think it's kind of a shame because it gives the connotation that somehow the blues is kind of a guy's thing. And I don't see it that way at all.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's hard because as women, if you go on to a festival website,
right,
you will see 99% of those artists men.
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard as a woman blues artist to make an impact in the industry. And what has happened is if you don't come out as a woman ready to take over, the men will take it over. And so that's kind of our attack on the whole blues scene is our first opportunity, we have to hit hard and make that impact to where someone else will want us. And from this gig, we get another gig, and that's how it is for the women. It's really hard for us.
Well, I just think it's too bad that you kind of have to fight that way. But that said, it does refine, and it's obvious from listening to your music that it's something that you've had to fight for, and it makes you such a great artist in that respect then. You know, it does, and the soft, sensitive side of me gets all emotional about it because it's hard as a woman to really show this person that it's not that we're trying to be better than the next guy artist. It's that, hey, look over here. Don't you need a woman on your festival? Don't you need a woman to come and do something at your club or your venue? Right.
It's that type of thing. You know, hey, over here, I can do that too. You know, that's what we're scrambling for as the women blues artists out here.
Well, fantastic. Well, before we head off, Diedra, make sure that you throw out anything you want about the Facebook page, about your website. Where can we get your CDs? Absolutely.
My website is www.Diedra, the Blues Diva. And that's everything about us from links to see us live to booking information as well as ways to purchase my music. My Facebook page is Diedra, the Blues Diva. And you can go to iTunes, Rhapsody, Amazon, any internet store to purchase my music.
Fantastic. Well, Diedra, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast of the Blues Society. You were wonderful, and I know that you're going to be wonderful. Everybody who wants to see Diedra play, she's going to be playing Sunday, Maritime Park, as well as Monday night at the Blues Jams at Seville Quarter, hosted by the Blues Society of Northwest Florida. And I guarantee you it's going to be a great show. Diedra,
thank you so much.
Thank you for coming to Pensacola. We hope that you absolutely love your time here.
Okay, we'll see you this weekend.